let's get through the syllabus and all of that sort of stuff. And we'll then get to some actual math. So it's also the world's fanciest syllabus in that it has like color and stuff. Is that visible sufficiently? Yeah, okay. All right, so we're here to learn calculus. So we're going to do calculus. We've got a free electronic textbook, and I just realized I forgot to put the link on Canvas, so I'll fix that. Like I said, it's free. So I wouldn't bother printing it out or anything like that because just, download the PDF and have it handy. And then you'll have the one thing you got to pay for is the online homework system, $25. There's no trial period, which kind of sucks. So you have to do that like ASAP, like today kind of thing. All right, so it's 8 a.m. You guys are all awake mostly. Yeah? So do you think this is going to be the case in a month? Yes, you say. Because we all get so energized by the idea of learning calculus at 8 in the morning that what possibly, it just warms our soul to wake up and do calculus, right? Yeah, okay. So, like, the point of a class like this, I know I can do calculus. I've been doing it a very long time. I can do it in my sleep. And sometimes disturbingly, I actually have dreams where I'm doing calculus. And then like wake up when I have like notice that somebody's making an error, like in hot sweats, like, oh my God, they forgot the chain rule. Um, anyway, so yeah, so we're gonna do like I expect you guys to be here because we're gonna be working, which means being here early, being awake, and being ready and willing to get your butts to the chalkboard and do stuff. Okay. Um, all right. Office hours, yeah, you come talk to me. So I was really hoping that I would never have to say this crap again, but there's this virus. You guys may have heard of it. It's going around, and it kind of sucks. And I thought we would be done with this by now, but we're not because Merca. So please pay attention to emails um, and communicate with me, particularly if you get a positive test or a close contact or something like that and have to get thrown into the quarantine like tent or whatever it is, because that would suck. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so we're going to be using tons of technology. Um, a bunch of it's software, all of which is free, at least to you. Um, some of which is online. So I'm assuming that you guys have all used Desmos in high school at this point. So yeah, so it's great, but there's also some other stuff we'll use, GeoGebra, Mathematica, Wolfram Alpha, and then YouTube and Twitch. Of course, I'm live streaming everything on Twitch, and which has the added convenience that it keeps a recording for 2 weeks. And with a single button click, I can send the recording over to YouTube for all time, right? So between those two, if you do have to miss class, well, it's no big deal, right? Well, it is kind of a big deal. And the reason is like the point of the class is going to be we're going to be doing a lot of work together and in class, and you can't really replicate that online. So, um, and I mean, you guys all were in school during spring 2 years ago, right? What happened in mid-March? The world went from being pretty good to sucking really hard, right? And school probably sucked really hard at that point. Yeah, so just get your butts here. It's not that hard. Okay. Um, okay. So the big thing to talk about is I hate talking about grading because it's the least, you know, interesting part of teaching. But um, the way this is going to work is right. So when you took a math class in high school, how did that work in terms of grades? You had homework, you had exams. What happened if you bombed an exam? Yeah, your grade sucked. Okay. Is that reasonable? Well, yes and no, right? So, what is the point of taking a class, particularly something like calculus? Yeah, at the end of the semester, I want you to be able to know calculus and demonstrate that you know calculus, right? So, if I give you an exam on Monday, which I will, by the way, so buckle your seatbelt, um, that's kind of, what happens if you bomb it? Are you like doomed for the rest of the semester? Well, if we did this the high school way and sort of the normal way, then yeah, you'd be doomed. Is that reasonable? No. Okay. So we're going to do things quite a bit differently. Um, Instead of you, you know, bombing an exam, right? That means you weren't able to demonstrate to me that you knew those things. Well, that's fine. You'll just do them again and again and again until you get them right, damn it. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a finite length of time in the semester, so eventually the train, leaves the station. But um, the point is that if I give you a problem on X, you keep screwing that one up, but you get some other problem. Well, good. You don't have to do that other kind of thing ever again. You've mastered it. You've convinced me you know what you're doing. Move on to other stuff. Okay. Um, and sort of the idea here is like if let's say that in a high school you took a bunch of exams and you got an exactly 80% on all of them. What's better? That you know 80% of everything or that you can do 100% on 80% of the things? I'd argue the latter. Okay. Um, and so this is the whole system is set up with this idea. Okay, so the course we divided up into 35 different units. Okay, on all the different kind of skills that we're going to learn. Okay, and I've got a list that's on Canvas of what all 35 of them are. Okay, but like let's say that for example you've got this first one, which is the first one that's sort of calculus related. Um, so the way class is roughly speaking going to work is um, before class, you guys will have um, not every day, but most days, some sort of warm up to do. Okay, and which will basically take what I would do in the first 5 minutes of a class, dump that online, and the point of that is um, we don't have a whole lot of time here together. So why don't we do the stuff that needs to have a math PhD in the room while the math PhD is in the room? Seems somewhat logical to me, right? And the very beginning stuff where it's just sort of like, okay, here's the amuse bouche of what we're going to be covering. That stuff you can do in ahead of time. You guys know what amuse bouche means? Anybody ever been to a fancy restaurant? Like a really fancy restaurant? Okay, so amuse bouche is literally like mouth amusement. So it's like this little taste of something that comes before the appetizer comes, which in French is called l'entrée. For some reason, we use entrée for the main course in English, and I do not know why, because it literally means the entrance. So, but oh, by the way, you'll also be fluent in French by the end of the semester. So, just yeah, get ready. Okay, so anyway, you're going to do a warm up before class, and sometimes there'll be some exercises to go with it, right? Um, those will be due basically 23:59 the night before class, right? Then we have class at 8, okay? During class, we're going to talk about it more, work through problems, and so on, okay? And then you'll do sort of a traditional homework assignment after every class. Um, and then after we cover something, every time we do an exam, which we'll talk about in a minute, it'll be that standard or skill will be on there until you pass it. Okay, so what this means is that when I write the exams, I have to make 17 versions because each one of you, like the first exam, everybody's will be the same, but by the second and third and so on, then they're going to be different based on what you've passed so far. Okay. Um, so basically, the thing that's scary about this is that there is no partial credit. And I don't know, those of you guys who are like not freshmen probably live on partial credit, right, Mr. Sergiuski? Yeah. Well, but there is none. You either convince me you know what you're doing, or you have not convinced me that you know what you're doing. Okay. Um, and now look, if you like say 2 + 2 is 5 because you're being a bonehead and it doesn't materially change the solution, fine, whatever. But just don't be an idiot. Okay. All right. So one thing I'm going to do that's maybe a little different. The first assessment I'll give you guys in class on Monday. Okay. But all the subsequent ones you're going to do outside of class. Okay. Um, and basically pick an hour sometime on the day, which will usually be Mondays. You come by my office, which is right across the hall. You say, "Hi, Dr. McKinney. I'd like to take my exam now." And I will hand it to you. You will go find a quiet place somewhere in the building. You will do it. And an hour later, you'll bring it back to me. Sound good? So what's the benefit of doing that? It's a logistical nightmare for me, but what's the benefit of doing that? Huh? Well, yeah, if you need to go have coffee or breakfast before you do it, that's fine. Exactly. More time in class to do actual calculus instead of just me sitting here and you guys sweating, right? So that's the main point is that way we can use class for like actually doing stuff and outside of class for not. Um, Generally speaking, we'll do these on Mondays, but not exclusively. For example, right before spring break, I think I was planning on doing one on a Friday just because it's right before break, and doing one Monday after spring break seems kind of cruel. Yeah. I mean, this could be arranged if you prefer, but yeah, figured you guys would rather not do that. One of the other benefits of Monday is that typically sports isn't traveling on Mondays, but if there's going to be sports travel or something, just talk with me, right? Um, or COVID related stuff because stuff happens. Okay. Um, all right, here's the grading stuff. Basically, do good work and you get an A. All right, so the Edfinity stuff, there's really sort of two categories of the assignments, right? The warm ups, which are really short and meant to be like, is your brain awake and ready to talk about whatever we're going to talk about? And then the actual more like traditional homework assignments that are longer and more meant to help you practice the skills, right? Um, well, if the warm up assignments are made to prepare you for a topic in class, can you do a warm up after you've done the topic in class? Kind of defeats the purpose now, doesn't it? So you got to do the warm ups before class, or you get a 0. It's that simple. The regular assignments, um, they're going to have due dates, okay? But one of the things I like about Canvas and stuff is they'll have due dates. Are they really due at the due dates? Sort of. Okay, so I'll show you one thing on Canvas. They're going to lock, though, up to 2 weeks after the due date. Okay, meaning if there's like one problem you're stuck on, that's okay. We can talk about it. But if you get behind, you are SOL. Okay, so don't get behind. Okay, so The sort of third kind of assignment you're going to have are what I call tasks, and they can take three flavors. Um, the very first one is already up on Canvas. It's a writing assignment, like an essay. Uh, I want to know who you are and what your math background is. So, like actual paragraphs and sentences that have subjects and verbs and things of that sort. Does this sound too much to ask? You think it's too much to ask, Jaden? No? Okay. Um, yeah. One thing that the crew last semester did that they said worked really well and everybody liked, but also were valuable, was video assignments where you like record yourself explaining a problem or something. So we'll do some of those, and then things that are be like kind of like mini projects. Um, so you might do some interesting application problems or do something with technology like using Mathematica, which we'll use a lot in class. So we'll talk about that. Um, and um, Basically, the way I've structured the semester is there's something, either a task or an exam, basically every Monday, with obviously a few exceptions just because of um, the way the calendar works. So just pay attention to Canvas. Um, okay, here's all the stuff that we're going to learn, basically calculus, and then here's all the boilerplate stuff about blah blah blah. Don't be a douchebag and cheat. Um, we have this thing called the gentleman's rule, and then so how do you get help if you're stuck on something? There's lots of ways. What are those ways? Patrick, what is one of those ways? Yes. And when is McKinney in his office? Like all the freaking time, right? Okay. And where is McKinney's office? Yeah, I know it's such a hike to get there. You'll need a wagon train, and did any of you guys play Oregon Trail when you were kids? Yeah, of course. Okay. Um, so I learned actually interesting fact. I was born in the period of millennials that are called the Oregon Trail millennials. So yeah, just that'll date me a little bit. Okay, but what's another great way to get help? Jaden. Yeah. What's the QSC, Jaden? Huh? Well, we pay them, so yeah. Yeah. So it's drop-in tutoring. They're there to, help with. Uh, Usually, it's helping you with homework, right? In particular, the QSC is open Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 1900 to 2300, and when McKinney is very much not in the office. Okay, so we got most of the hours of the day covered between me and the QSC. But wait, there's more. Order within the next 60 seconds, and we'll also include a free pair of SI sessions per week. Just pay separate processing and handling. And Eddie, why don't you tell us about SI? Right. Yeah. So Eddie's SI sessions are going to be what, Sunday and Tuesday at 1900, 7 p.m. Yeah. In Goodrich 305, which is just up on the top floor. Okay. So, so I want to make clear the difference here. SI is about studying. QSC is about homework. Right. And it may shock you to learn that studying concepts before trying to do a bunch of problems on them actually makes doing those problems go a little easier, right? I know this is a, earth shattering idea, but it's true. Yeah, so the two are going to work really hand in hand. Okay, Eddie and I. So Eddie took this class. Well, God, 3.5 years ago now, right? Yeah. So because he's a second semester senior, riding high on being done with comps, um, and uh, yeah. So he's done this before, and he's been doing SI for several years now, right? Right. So Eddie's a pro at this. Eddie and I are going to meet once a week and just talk about, I mean, a couple of things. One, Eddie knows what's hard about calculus because he's done this a bunch, right? But part of the reason that we meet is, um, as many times as I've taught calculus, every class is different. And what you guys are having trouble with or not having trouble with always is different, right? And so Eddie and I talk about that, so that, well, how was your morning poke and prod? It was good. Yeah, and hopefully we're negative. Because otherwise, what are you doing here? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, the other benefit of it being Sundays and Tuesdays is, well, if we do the exams on Mondays, right, the night before can be a really good way to just go back over some stuff, right, in advance of class. So, the generally speaking, the sessions are going to lag class material by a couple of days, upwards of a week. That's okay. That's deliberate, right? But this is the reason he and I will meet kind of roughly once weekly. So the first one will be Sunday this coming weekend, right? Tuesday next week. Never mind. Okay. And I've also added Eddie to Canvas, so he'll be able to send Canvas announcements reminding you guys about it, and also saying like, "Hey, don't forget SI is tonight, and we're going to be talking about X." Um, and Yeah, okay, good. So, any questions, preguntas and or fragens? No? Okay, well, then let's look at, um, let's look at the Canvas page just to start. Okay, so got a couple of links here, and I need to put some more stuff up, like to the textbook and whatever. But my Twitch page, and the YouTube channel for the math department. So if you go to the Twitch page, so Twitch only stores recordings for 2 weeks, um, after which they just get auto deleted. And so right after every class, what I do is click the button to transfer them to YouTube because YouTube doesn't delete them, and so they're all there. So be sure to mash that subscribe button and hit the thumbs up and the little bell so you'll get notified when there's new content on our channel. And particularly on Twitch because I'm making like boatloads of ad revenue off of teaching. No, not really. I wish, right? Um, yeah, okay. All right, so let's talk about sort of the first couple of assignments and how this is going to work. The very first one is called Intro to Edfinity, and it's basically it's an assignment where the assignment walks you through how to actually use the system. It's really foolproof, and you guys aren't idiots because you were born this millennia or millennium. So yeah, but what you'll do is you'll click on the assignment. It'll say load Introduction to Edfinity in a new window. That'll open up Edfinity, and the very first time you do it is when it's going to be like, "Hey, pony up, bro." Um, and then it'll all just automatically do everything, take you directly to the assignment. In fact, let me actually show you guys how this works. Okay, so let's just take, for example, this assignment, right? So, or actually, let me do the intro one just while we're on the subject. Okay, so um, if we found ourselves with -1 times 1, what might we type in the box? I know it's early in the morning, the sun's not up, but I'll take -1 for 500, Alex. Yeah, yeah, okay. Um, and then we'd continue, and like, let's say that we wanted to compute the answer, and what happens if the answer isn't a decimal? Can we do square root of 7? How would you write square root of 7? Like, how would you type square root of 7? I guess a better question. Either this or that. Seem reasonable? Yeah. Um, and uh, in some cases, you can also do a decimal approximation. So if, the square root of 7, what is the square root of 7? Like, roughly? Well, I know it's between 2 and 3, right? So 2 point something or other, right? And I could mash the calculator and get a bunch of digits. And that might be kind of good enough just to get the sense for how big the answer is. So in some cases, a numerical value is okay, in which case just make sure that you use plenty of significant digits, um, because it really is picky about the accuracy on those to make sure that you're not just guessing, basically. Okay, and then they get more fun, right? So, for example, you could have natural logs. You can type expressions, right? So, if you've used Desmos or Wolfram Alpha, has anybody used? Who is who has not used Desmos before? Okay. Who has not used Wolfram Alpha before? Okay, pretty much all of you. Anybody use? Who has used Mathematica before? Just okay, right? That's what I figured. What about GeoGebra? Has anybody used that before? Yeah, in high school. Oh, excellent. Okay, I love GeoGebra. Really? Oh, so the reason I like GeoGebra is because you can do constructions geometrically, like draw this circle, find the intersection, do that sort of stuff. Right. For graphing, yeah, Desmos is easier, but for doing like actual geometry, like um, when you were in high school, like that kind of stuff, like GeoGebra is great. Okay, anyway, um, so you can use brackets, you can use parentheses, right? So all of that stuff is pretty straightforward. One other thing to remember is that for the most part, the units are assumed. So unless the problem specifically says something like input the units, don't worry about it. Um, and yeah. Okay, so let's say that we did this and we got one wrong. What happens then? Are we doomed for all eternity? Why not? Yeah, you can, well, that too, yes. You can try again. Okay. So how many times can you try a problem? Infinitely many until basically the sun explodes, right? Or the semester ends, whichever comes first. My bet's on the latter, but yeah. Yeah, so if you get a problem wrong, that's fine. Try again. Okay. Now, that said, if it's been like 5 or 6 tries and you're still not getting it, then odds are you're not making a little mistake. There's something that you're actually misunderstanding. Okay. In which case, what should you do? Yep. Uh huh. Yep. Wow. Great. Got all these resources. Okay. So, yeah, because like I said, I mean, if the first time you might have been like, oh, I forgot the minus sign or something, right? Like you're human, you're going to make those kinds of errors. But if after 4 or 5 different attempts, you're still not getting it, like I said, odds are it's actually a conceptual problem and you could sit there all day and maybe not figure it out. Okay. That's when it's time to talk with somebody or um, either in QSC or SI or me, or a bunch of you guys are in the same fraternities. Are you allowed to work together on homework? Absolutely. Okay. In fact, I almost prefer you guys to do that because it forces you to communicate math, and it turns out that you actually learn more when you're talking about it than when you're just sitting and doing it on your own. Okay. So anyway, so there's that. Um, and then there's some other stuff where, like, you might have complicated expressions. There's some things where it asks you to put like T or F in a box for true or false. There's some things where it's multiple choice. There's some things where, like, um, let's say that the answer is undefined. That happens. Then sometimes you just put in undefined. Uh, if you have a list of numbers, then you just put that with a list, and the order doesn't actually matter in the most part. Um, Although obviously in most cases it makes sense to put them in some sort of logical order just for your own sanity. You can do interval notation, right? Uh, there can be graphical questions that are either multiple choice or other things, right? So anyway, this assignment, right? Like, there's no reason you shouldn't get a perfect score on it. The whole point of, though, it is that you go through and you see, okay, this is how I do this kind of interface, this kind of thing, this kind of thing, this kind of thing. Okay, make sense? So it's not rocket science. Um, and even if it is, a couple of you guys know some rocket science, don't you? Yeah. Uh, so okay. Um, yeah. So then what'll happen is when you do them, okay, when they are quote due, or when you finish them, is when the grade will get transferred from Edfinity back into Canvas, okay? And it'll start out at zeros when you do it, but obviously that will change as you do it. So don't freak out if something looks like it's a zero initially, because it may just need to get updated, okay? Okay, so there's that. Um, and the first task, which, like I told you guys, was let's open that up. I want to know who you are. I want to know what background you have in mathematics. Where are you from? What have you taken before? What do you like about math? What do you hate about math? Did you really hate your fourth grade teacher? Was she mean? Or your algebra teacher in high school? Was he a jerk? I don't know. Maybe. I can't tell you how many students I've talked to that are like, I was really good at math and I liked it, and then I had Mrs. X. And then it's like you need therapy or something because of the trauma of this high school algebra class. So anyway, yeah. Um, so I just want to know who you are, right? And the first part has nothing really to do with math. Um, where are you from? What are you into? Who are you? Why did you come to this crazy little college in the middle of nowhere in Indiana? Particularly for those of you who are from out of state, particularly those of you who are from far out of state, like Texas, right? What on earth would have possessed you to come up here? Because I guarantee you the food's not any better. Okay, um, you know what education background? Like, did you go to public school? Did you go to a private school? Um, uh, did you play sports? What are you into? What are your hobbies? What are you doing here? Are you in a fraternity? Are you in a sports team? Right? Like, just give me everything about you. Okay. And then I want to kind of think about, or want you to think about, well, what math classes did you take? When did you take them? Um, since most of you are freshmen, most of you were not in math last semester. So this is going to be talking about your high school experiences. Um, what have your experiences been like? What do you feel about math? How have you used math in life outside of school? I know that's maybe a foreign concept, but whatever. Um, how do you think? How do you study? What do you do? Do you like to work in groups? Do you not like to work in groups? What do you do when you get stuck? If you ask for help, who do you ask? Right? Like, and in some cases, you can be very specific. Like, I go ask Rippy uh, because he's in the house, right? But yeah. So, do you go to fraternity brothers? Do you do other stuff? Like, all of you, this is well. this isn't your first semester, right? When you get stuck, what do? Talk about your study habits. Do you have a calendar? Do you keep track of assignment dates and stuff other than with Canvas? Do you procrastinate? Who procrastinates? Yeah, because we're all guys, right? I haven't even begun starting to procrastinate. Yeah, I know, right? Okay, so yeah, and then what do you want to do with life? What do you want out of this course? What do you want out of your college experience? And what do you want out of life? And what do you want? Why are you here? Like, what is the purpose of your existence? Okay, now we're starting to sound like an EQ paper, but yeah. So anyway, you'll notice that most of these questions have nothing to do with math. That's okay, because you're a person, not a math doer. Um, yeah. So use paragraphs and sentences that are complete, have subjects and verbs, and heaven help you if there's a dangling participle or a split infinitive. Do you guys even know what a dangling participle or a split infinitive are? No? Okay. Anyway. Um, yeah. Okay. So, make it have good grammar and whatnot. Like, it doesn't have to be, Moby Dick, but yeah. All right. So that's basically the very first thing to kind of get working on. Yes, sir. Like the length of Moby Dick. Uh, yeah. Now, I mean, honestly, I don't think you could do this justice with anything less than 2 pages. Okay. Um, and I think, though, you will find that it flows naturally because you're writing about yourself for the most part, not like trying to argue some garbage about Frankenstein. Um, so, yeah. Um, yes, sir. Yeah, I don't really care about the formatting, but I think most of the time you guys double space. Makes it a little bit easier to read. Oh, I should mention on that. Oops, wrong one. So you'll submit this to Canvas, and one of the things I like about Canvas is that I can say which file types I want it in, and which file types are those. Basically, Word or PDF, right? Um, and that's basically going to be the case for almost every assignment. The exception, obviously, is if, like, I ask you to do something in Mathematica, then you should submit it in the Mathematica file format, which is .mb, but whatever. Okay, so the other thing I want to point out, right, is, so when is this due? Friday at 23:59. Okay. When is it available until? Yeah. Well, roughly. Okay. So what happens at 23:59 on the 4th of February? The assignment closes and you cannot open it, or rather, you cannot submit it. Okay. So why are there sort of two due dates? So you probably should have it done by now due date. And then let's say that you write it and you write it in French and your French sucks. And I say, your French sucks. Rewrite it. Well, then you've got time to do that, right? So in some cases, right, the first attempt at something may not pass muster. And if I kick it back to you to resubmit, well, you got some time to do it. Now, Patrick, you were in a certain class last semester. Sorry. Did this certain class have the 2-week thing? And so why do you think the professor might have added that to one of his classes this semester? Well, yes, because what happened in machine organization last semester? Uh-huh. And I can't do all of this in a week, right? So this is gentle inducement to like keep on top of stuff because otherwise you're doomed. right? And it was because of, well, not just you, but lots of people, right? I mean, I should have expected that, right? You guys are guys, and if you have to turn in a paper and they won't take it late and it's due tomorrow, and you also have an assignment due for me that's sort of due tomorrow but not really due tomorrow, which thing is going to take priority, right? So yeah, okay. So stay on top of things. The point here is that, well, twofold. Like when you submit something, I expect an honest submission here, right? Not like I will turn in my paper later. Like actually give me something to work with. Don't waste my time any more than wasting your own. Um, but if it doesn't pass muster and it needs to get corrected, that's okay within limits. Okay, so that's sort of the point here. Um, yeah. Uh, okay, so keep in mind that on Canvas, um, and as I populate stuff, the Canvas page from my end is kind of a hot mess right now. You guys obviously can't see it, but hopefully it'll be a lot more organized here in the next like 4 hours. So anyway, because it's kind of a pain in the butt the way I have to do the assignments. I have to create them all in Infinity, and then I have to create a mirror of them in Canvas, and then I have to link one to the other, and I have to do that on assignment by assignment basis. And it's a real pain in the butt. Okay, so it takes forever, and hopefully I'll get it straightened out. Okay, so any questions, preguntas, and or fragans? No? All right, well, we actually didn't do any math today. That's okay. We'll do some math on Wednesday. All right, so if you have no questions, then be gone.